This program is sponsored by Dave Stahl. It's time to get educated on your Second Amendment rights. Welcome to 2 full hours of Gun Owners Radio. Your hosts, Dave Stahl, Joe Dramisi, and Michael Schwartz, will teach you about firearms, self-defense, and the laws that affect your rights to keep and bear arms. Visit gunownersradio.com with questions to learn how to become a sponsor of Gun Owners Radio and get involved. Together, we will win. Now here's your hosts, Dave Stahl, Joe Dramisi, and Michael Schwartz on The Answer San Diego.
All right, folks, welcome to Gun Owners Radio on FM 96.1, AM 1170.
The Answer.
Hey, California assault weapon laws make it almost impossible to own an AR pattern rifle. What's the solution? Cali Key. It'll convert any mil-spec direct impingement AR pattern rifle into a straight pull-bolt action rifle, so it can have all the features without being considered an assault weapon. Keep your entire AR collection intact at a price you can afford at Cali Key. Check out CaliKey.com. That's KALIKEY.com. Hey, and if you have legal matters that involve anything gun-related, you need a great lawyer. I recommend Dillon Law Group. John Dillon will consult on red flag laws, gun registration, gun transportation, and storage, and you can totally trust him as a firearms attorney. You can call him at 760-642-7150, or just go to his website, DillonLawGP.com. All right, guys, so what is going on? How you been?
Good, man. It's heck of a week, a whole bunch going on. If you haven't heard, we had to move the Second Amendment celebration dinner to October 3rd.
Which is not really a problem. That just gives more people more opportunities to come. And by the way, I don't know if you heard, but John Dillon gave away 5 seats last week.
Yes.
Within 2 minutes, he had over 20 emails. He said he got inundated, and maybe even more. So good that we know all our loyal listeners are listening.
Well, it is. And to the 15 people that couldn't get a ticket,
now you have an opportunity.
Now you have an opportunity. Tickets are on sale. The early bird special is still in effect, so you do not have to pay $150. It's only $99, and it gets you all kinds of fun and a meal and entertainment, and you might win a prize.
And it'll be outdoors still, so that you won't have any issues with that. And we don't know where we're going to be at that point.
Town and Country. Still at the Town and Country. Re-signed the contract.
Well, Brittany, I invited Brittany to go with her fiance or her boyfriend, and she even had her appointment to have her hair done on Thursday, so now she had to cancel her hair appointment. I said, just go get your hair done.
And Joe's going to be there.
Yeah,
Joe's got a couple tables.
He's already got his appointment for his hair. Yeah. Hold on a second. Turn on Joe over there, Mr. Brandon.
Yeah, Joe's got to be covert again. Joe's got to get. He's so covert that we can't even.
I don't even know.
We don't even get audio from him, But Joe's going to get his hair done for the occasion. I know he works with one of the best in the county. So, but yeah, I'll tell you, it's been an interesting Second Amendment week. So, we continue to work hard with San Diego County Gun Owners, and you're really starting to see some of the elected officials buckle when their mettle is being tested by all the COVID restrictions. So we've been paying a lot of attention to that. But today, in our next segment coming up at 4:15, we're actually talking with Stephen Hallbrook, who's the author of the book, The Founders' Second Amendment. And The Founders' Second Amendment, that book is probably the best book I've ever seen on the history of the Second Amendment. There's a lot of different things to talk about when you talk about the Second Amendment. There's the legality of the Second Amendment. There's the philosophy of the Second Amendment. Now, you've read The Founders' Second Amendment, right, Joe? Yeah, Joe's read it.
I don't know that I'm lying.
Joe's read the book. He's recommended the book to others. It's been really, really great. But you have read it, right?
Yeah. Let's see. Okay, I can help you from here now. You don't have to wing it by yourself anymore.
You can go back to your mic.
You told me to come over here. Well, I'll help Michael out, and then I'll move back.
But the historic significance of how the Second Amendment came to be is really something that we haven't examined enough, and Hallbrook's really written the definitive book on the subject, and it's particularly timely because there's a lot of things going on with COVID-19 and the riots and everything. We have the Second Amendment, and we generally know what it protects, but What's the historical significance? Why was it written?
Well, and that's what's great about it too, because I think a lot of people don't realize that, when they don't take it in context. I think the people that wrote the Second Amendment and the Constitution and all that had just gone through all this stuff with their revolution and the war and everything. And, you have to think about it in context. A lot of people today, the ones that are a lot of the left is anti, it's not just Second Amendment, they're anti-First Amendment, they're anti-Constitution. But if you think about, the things that these people experienced and why they wrote things like the Second Amendment, for instance, is just, they don't look at that as it's not a government given right. They look at it as a God given right or a natural human right to be able to protect yourself. And just, firearms are just a natural part of that. And there were people back then that didn't even think that was necessary. They thought that was so obvious that, okay, you won't have to include that in here. But in Hallbrook's book, he uses information from back then. So he's using articles that were in the papers back then and things that the founders wrote. And so you're seeing it from their perspective, and it's fascinating. It's a great book.
And a lot of people, the argument is well, gee, how can owning a gun be a God-given right? When we were created, there was no gun. I mean, the guns are a couple hundred years old, but what's being missed is that the right is to protect yourself. And if you don't have the ability to protect yourself, i.e. a firearm, the most effective tool ever created for an individual to be able to defend their life or their country or their neighborhood, if you take that away, then you are taking away their ability, their right to defend themselves.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. If you don't want to give them the ability to do that, then you go back to the really olden days where, okay, the fastest, biggest, strongest people are in charge.
Right.
And right away, if you look at it from a woman's point of view, okay, now you've lost to 50% of the people, in the planet here. Mm-hmm. So by having firearms and stuff in our modern society, that equalizes everybody. So you have the ability to defend yourself.
And if you look at, again, a portable firearm, something you could actually, not a cannon or a big machine gun, being, pulled behind a horse, but the actual ability to have a portable firearm that you could carry around with, that an individual could carry around with them, just a couple hundred years old, really.
Right.
But if you look at the last couple hundred years, look at how much has happened. We've gotten a country that was built on the idea of defending individual rights. Mm-hmm. We've had LGBT rights, have expanded more than any other time in history. Minority rights, women's rights. That's not a coincidence. That's not a coincidence that was that same 200 years. So a lot of people don't really take the time to look back and say, okay, well, what brought us here? Why were we the first nation to, codify a natural right and say, hey, you know what? You're allowed to have the same self-defense tools as the government. We're the first country to do anything even close to that. Mm-hmm. So what brought it? What brought us to that? What brought the colonies to include that and make sure? And I got to tell you, Hallbrook's book has just nailed it. I mean, he explains it so thoroughly and so effectively. It's one of the best books ever written. I'm really happy that we're going to have him coming in the next segment. It's going to be great.
Yeah, no, I mean, and it's important that we bring this up because the people that are anti don't want to read that book, and they don't want you to read that book. They want you to keep that just out of the conversation because they don't want anybody to have another opinion.
It doesn't fit their narrative.
No, it does not fit their narrative. No different than trying to ban the NRA. Now, people do bad things. People make mistakes. I don't care if you're a police officer, a cook, a secretary, a banker, a car dealer, but you don't close down all the car dealerships. You don't close down all the schools. You don't close down all the banks because one or two people that do poor judgment and make mistakes. So with the NRA, is the NRA perfect? No, it's not perfect. Nothing is perfect. So because it is what it is, you need to look at it with a different outlook. And I personally have not read the book, but I will definitely do it since I love to read.
It's great. Wait till you hear the author. The other thing we have coming up at 5:15 is Sheriff Gore. He was going to join us last week. He's definitely going to be on this week at 5:15. So speaking of your right to bear arms, we're going to talk to. We've been talking a lot about how CCWs have changed. Now we're going to hear it from the horse's mouth, Sheriff Gore.
Exactly.
So stick with us.
Right. And there was no reference to Sheriff Gore and a horse.
No.
Not that at this point in time, anyway.
Figuratively
speaking. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, there's a whole lot more right here on Gun Owners Radio, FM 96.1, AM 1170.
The Answer.
There's more Gun Owners Radio with Dave, Joe, and Mike to come on The Answer San Diego.
Folks, welcome back to Gun Owners Radio, FM 96.1, AM 1170.
The Answer.
Hey, what's the best defense for self-defense and those horrible new red flag laws? Firearms legal protection. Mike, Joe, and I use them, and Firearms Legal Protection is the legal defense program for the lawful gun owners with a 24/7 emergency hotline and plans designed specifically for the firearms owner. Call Firearms Legal Protection today. That's Firearms Legal Protection at firearmslegal.com. Or call direct at 469-310-9100. That's 469-310-9100. Firearmslegal.com. Hey, home mortgage interest rates have dropped, and if you're looking to buy or refi, or maybe you're considering a reverse mortgage, you need to call the local mortgage guy that you can trust. That would be Chris Wiley at PRMI Mortgage. For nearly 25 years, Chris has been helping local San Diegans with all their mortgage needs. Give Chris a call at 619-722-1303 or just go to primeres.com/Alpine. All right, Mike, I'm going to let you introduce our special guest.
It is an honor. So years ago, before there was a San Diego County Gun Owners PAC, a group of activists got together with the help of then Assemblyman Joel Anderson, who's now former Senator Joel Anderson. Mm-hmm. And we decided, you know what, we need to do more. We need to be more organized. And we were putting together a curriculum of how to be a Second Amendment activist. And that how to be a Second Amendment activist curriculum is now turned into a seminar that we actually regularly give. And I was voluntold to put the curriculum together. And one of the great things that I found was the book called The Founders' Second Amendment by Stephen Halbrook. Stephen is an attorney by trade, but he put together and authored this fantastic book that really talks about not necessarily the legalities or the philosophy of the legalities of the Second Amendment, but talks about the history of the Second Amendment. You know, why was it written? What were the conditions that it was written? Who wrote it? Soup to nuts from beginning to end. And it is truly a masterpiece. It is the definitive book on the subject. And it is my pleasure to welcome Stephen to the show today. Stephen, how are you?
I'm great. How are you all guys? And what year did you start your organization?
We started San Diego County Gun Owners in the end of 2015. And since then we've grown to, we now have Orange County Gun Owners and Riverside County Gun Owners, San Bernardino County Gun Owners, and just this month we went over 2,000 members of San Diego County Gun Owners.
That's fantastic. I was just curious because every year it gets worse in your state. The laws that get passed are just such an anathema to the Second Amendment. And I started working in your state in 1989 when Roberti Rue's, the so-called assault weapon ban, started.
Yep.
And I've done a little bit of litigation there. But, I mean, I don't know. I don't know how you people do it.
Well, I got to tell you, it's been getting worse, but there's been a lot of light at the end of the tunnel. We've had a number of victories locally. For the first time in years, San Diegans and people in Orange County and people in Riverside, they're starting to issue CCWs for the first time in San Diego, the first time in decades. It went from 1,100 to over 4,000, and they're issuing 120, 130 a month now. So it really shows that, hey, if you organize, if you do the right things, that good things can happen. So, California has a rich Second Amendment history. And if San Diego County Gun Owners has anything to say about it, we're going to have a real rich Second Amendment future. But I got to tell you, I was so inspired and so informed by your book, The Founders' Second Amendment. Would you mind? Could you just kind of maybe just give us a synopsis? Tell us what the book attempts to cover and talk about and educate on.
Well, it's a lifetime of research. I started reading about the Second Amendment history and the debates on the ratification of the Constitution, all of that, back when I was an undergraduate in the late 60s. And So I put it all together, many decades of research, and it basically starts in 1768. At that time, the British troops were sailing to Boston, and the fear immediately was that they were going to disarm the inhabitants. And so that just was the start. We go through the period like the Boston Massacre and the Tea Party and one thing after another, and finally in the early 1770s, the British are trying to disarm the colonists, and colonists are fighting back. And then we have the shot heard around the world, the Lexington and Concord. And not many people know it, but after that battle, General Gage, the commander-in-chief of the British forces, disarmed all the people in Boston. And so and then what happened after that, the War for Independence started. Two lessons were learned. One was that the British are trying to disarm the Americans. Tyrants do that. And the other side of that was that you have to be armed in order to protect your liberty. So those lessons were remembered when it came time for the Constitution. It was proposed originally with no Bill of Rights, and so that led to great anguish by a lot of people. So they demanded the Bill of Rights, and that's how we ended up with the right of the people to keep and bear arms, and the declaration that it shall not be infringed. And it was so clearly an individual right to keep and bear arms for all lawful purposes. You were just talking about concealed weapon permits being issued. Well, bear arms is such an obvious meaning to that. Mm-hmm. And yet you have courts saying that, well, that doesn't mean anything. And, it means carrying arms in a militia or something. I mean, what kind of right is that? I mean, this is an individual right for self-defense, to protect the country, to protect your community. So when you put all that history together, the Second Amendment means exactly the way it's written. There was never any baffling vagueness to it, like courts try to make out in some cases nowadays. But so it's getting fought out in the courts. I mean, most states have pretty good laws about carrying, and it's only about 8 that do not. But you're somewhat fortunate in your state where the law is written in a way where there's discretion on what policy the sheriff or other issuing authority has. So that's great to hear you're making progress in that way.
We are making great progress. One of the things that was really interesting about your book, and actually it kind of acted as a guide to Colonial Williamsburg when I visited Colonial Williamsburg in Virginia, which is if you haven't been there, I'm sure you have, Stephen, but if our listeners haven't been there, it's like a living museum. Williamsburg used to be the capital of Virginia. Virginia was the biggest colony of the 13th colonies. They were kind of the leader of the 13 colonies. And what was interesting is there's a lot of people think or talk a lot about how the Tea Party, the Boston Tea Party, kicked off the War for Independence for the colonies, but really it had a lot more to do with arms. They tried to take arms from the Virginians, and the Virginians, led by Patrick Henry, fought back and said, "This is not going to happen. You are not going to take our arms." And that the governor of Virginia, who was appointed by the king, hightailed it out of there. He left overnight. But really, what really sparked the actual conflict, the actual war, was the British trying to take the colonists' arms. Is that an accurate portrayal, Stephen? Did I say that pretty well?
That's completely accurate. The Continental Congress passed the Declaration of Causes of taking up arms in 1775, and one of the grievances that it put in there was the fact that the people had been disarmed in Boston, and then were not allowed to leave the town either. There was a promise that if they turned in their arms, they could leave. And what happened, in fact, was that the British confiscated their guns and then reneged on the promise. And that started taking place throughout the colonies, the colonists being disarmed. And if you go into the history of Virginia, North Carolina, the southern colonies as well as the northern colonies, you have one attempt after another with the British. They basically said, you have to join our forces or you have to turn in your guns, or you'll be considered to be outside the protection of the law, which means that if they caught you with a gun, they could shoot you on the spot if they wished to do so.
Yeah.
So very much so. The fact was that the British seized the arms, they confiscated the arms, and that was the basic impetus for having the Second Amendment.
The arms, and then, out here we are California is plagued with a new law where they're going after ammunition, and the argument from people that are trying to basically stop or severely restrict the ability for gun owners to buy ammunition are basically saying, hey, this is ammunition. It's not the right to keep and bear arms. This is ammunition. That's different. But the reality was when the British were trying to stop the colonists, it wasn't just the guns. They were definitely confiscating guns, but they were also trying to regulate powder. So they figured, hey, we can take this on both ends. We can take the guns away, and we can stop them from making possessing, using the one thing that makes a firearm, and that's the ability to shoot a projectile. So they were going after the powder as well.
Well, and that was to stop the people that had guns that they couldn't get to. So they figured if they couldn't get your gun, if they stopped the powder, then your gun is worthless unless you use it as a club.
Right.
Well, General Gage, the same commander-in-chief of the British forces, before the actual fighting started, engaged in what was called the Gunpowder Plot. And at that time, black powder is pretty combustible. I mean, it was a lot more dangerous than modern smokeless powder.
Right.
And so it was stored in these powder magazines. And so what Gage did was to have those magazines seized, and he would not allow merchants who would have magazines stored in these places to take it out. And so this was one of the grievances. These patriots tried to meet with him. This was before the shooting started. Meet with him and find out, why are you doing this? And he's saying, well, why are you people buying so many guns and hiding them? I mean, so it was kind of a cat and mouse game on both sides.
Yeah, and I bet that story is even better, so people need to buy your book. Hey, we're going to take a quick break. You can hang on for another segment with us.
Yes, sure thing.
All right, that's going to be great. I can't wait. So, folks, don't touch that dial. This is FM 96.1, AM 1170.
The Answer.
Welcome back to Gun Owners Radio, educating you on your Second Amendment right. Now, here are your hosts of Gun Owners Radio, Dave Stahl, Joe Germisi, and Michael Schwartz on The Answer San Diego.
All right, folks. Hey, welcome back. This is Gun Owners Radio on FM 96.1, AM 1170.
The Answer.
All right, folks. Thousands of panic buyers just found out what San Diego shooters have known for a long time. A.O. Sword Firearms in El Cajon has the widest selection of guns in the county. A.O. Sword has hundreds of different new and used guns and everything you could want for an AR-15. Whether you're looking for the latest competition rifle, combat pistol, or collectible cowboy iron, you'll find it all at A.O. Sword. They are also professional gunsmiths with a full machine shop. They can clean, repair, upgrade, or even customize your gun, including Cerakote. And check out their full line of Champion safes. I just went and checked them out. OMG. You should see these beauties. They look like furniture. A.O. Sword Firearms is at 929 East Main Street, just off Mollison in El Cajon. Best of all, they are friendly, informed, and actively support your rights. See for yourself with their legal and technical updates on Facebook. Check out aosword.com or call direct at 619-749-4867. All right, Michael, do you want to do a little intro on our special guest?
Absolutely. So we're here. We're talking with Stephen Hallbrook, who is the author of one of the best, probably the best Second Amendment book I've ever written, The Founder's Second Amendment. Fantastic book. I listen to a lot of speakers talk about the Second Amendment and talk about different issues on YouTube. And one day I was getting ready in the morning, and you know how when a video on YouTube ends and it just kind of rolls into another video, and it rolled into another video, and the speaker was talking about the Second Amendment and was so eloquent, and it was so well put, and it was so informative. I thought, man, who is this?
You cut yourself shaving.
Yeah, I cut myself shaving. It was so fantastic. Stephen Hallbrook. And I said, oh, that's the founder Second Amendment guy. He's so fantastic. Such an honor to have you on the show, sir. I'm so glad that you wrote your book and have done all the work you've done. So what inspired you? What about the Second Amendment inspired you to make it your life's work?
Well, I was pretty young when all the trouble started in the 1960s. I was a teenager, and they were restricting firearms, blaming gun owners for riots, and basically overriding the Second Amendment. At the same time, you had an ideology created by the legal community that, well, the right to bear arms doesn't really mean the right to bear arms, and the people doesn't mean the people. It means the militia, and it means the states, and there's no individual right here. And then the culture developed that they ridiculed the Second Amendment. So then I find myself in law school, and take constitutional law, and they don't even mention the Second Amendment. It never gets mentioned. And then so after I became a practicing lawyer, I began working on Second Amendment issues and doing litigation. And so you have this collective rights theory that was invented out of thin air, and it was denial that there's any individual right to keep and bear arms. I mean, the people means the people, the right of people to assemble, be free from unreasonable searches and seizure, and to keep and bear arms. It means all the public at large. And so I had read about the founding, and I just wanted to get deeper into it and to do the investigation. And basically it ended up, as you would think, that they wrote the amendment clearly. They weren't kidding. They were talking about individuals. When you read the works of Jefferson and Madison and all the other founders, they were gun owners. They defended the right to keep and bear arms. They hunted. They carried pistols for self-defense. They engaged in shooting matches. And so there was nothing unclear about the amendment at all. And yet we don't have the Supreme Court really taking it on until the Heller case in 2008. And then 2 years later, McDonald invalidated the handgun bans in Washington, D.C. and Chicago. And by the way, the McDonald decision cited this book, the Founder's Second Amendment. So anyway, the research is there. Don't tell me the amendment doesn't mean anything or it doesn't apply in today's society. It's part of the Bill of Rights. It's part of our fundamental law, and hopefully it'll always be there.
We know, Stephen, and that was what was so great, I thought, about your book, because Michael said, you got to read this book here, the best Second Amendment book out there. And, and I've read your book, and it's fascinating when you read that, because a lot of the things that they were going through back then, a lot of the arguments that are not the arguments, but the things that the British were doing to the Americans back then are very similar to what's going on today. And I was going to circle back to the the individual right versus the collective right argument, which you just touched on, because when you read your book and you look at that stuff in context, I mean, it's extremely obvious. It's very obvious that this is an individual right and not a collective right. And, anti-gun people still make that argument today. And I think if more people were more aware, by reading your book and other things like that, they wouldn't be able to make that argument, because it's nonsense. So, I mean, when you look at the stuff that you write about, it just becomes very obvious.
Well, now what's going on is the Supreme Court has emphatically said the right to keep arms in your home. That's established. These were 5-4 decisions by the skin of our teeth. But so now the next argument of the anti-gun people is, well, that might apply to keeping arms, but bearing arms is just something the militia does. So you have a right to bear arms in the militia. Now think about the implications of that, how ridiculous that is. It refers to the right of the people to keep and bear arms to start with. Have you ever, militia service, that was compulsory. The Federal Militia Act, 1792, required all able-bodied men to acquire arms and to enlist in the militia. And all the state militia laws were the same. They required it. It's compulsory. That's not our right. I mean, think about the idea that a military force you somehow have a right to bear arms in the militia. Are you telling me that you could decide one day, well, I'm going to carry my Smith & Wesson Model 29 44 Magnum today, and the officer says, no, you're peeling potatoes? I mean, that's not a right. That's a duty. That's a duty. And so we still have this argument that's being made right now, and we have certain courts saying that, well, we don't know whether it's a right to carry. That's what the Ninth Circuit said in the Peruta case coming out of California. We don't really know what it means. And other courts say, well, yeah, there's a right to keep and bear arms, but we have these judicial doctrines that we invented. And so you end up presto, abracadabra. There is no such right to keep and bear arms. You know, it's like you'll have these long decisions going for 50 pages and saying that, well, bearing arms, whatever, it's like whatever Valley talk. It doesn't really mean anything.
So the Supreme Court just turned down about 10 cases that were, asked, petitioning the Supreme Court to hear, and the Supreme Court said, nope, we're not going to hear them. What's your opinion on that? I know I'm sure you followed it. I'm sure you were familiar with all 10 of them. We've talked about them on the air here, but what's your opinion of why they were turned down, or what's your take on what the next step is? Are they waiting for a better case? Is there a better case in the wings?
Well, I did friend of the court briefs in most of those cases, urging the court to take them. The cases couldn't have been better. I mean, one or two of those cases on the right to carry was about as well prepared as it could be. And you notice when the Supreme Court didn't decide the New York City idiotic law, you couldn't take a handgun out of your home. Mm-hmm. And so New York changed the law so they could get rid of the Supreme Court deciding it. But you had 4 justices saying that, look, we need to take on the Second Amendment case. It's getting ridiculous how courts are ignoring it. And so those 4 justices could have said, we're going to take one of these cases, but you don't do that unless you're sure you got a 5th vote. And so the speculation is that the Chief Justice Roberts could not be relied on to vote the right way. So here we go again. We have a circuit conflict. We have courts that are getting conflicting rulings, and the Supreme Court saying, well, I'm just going to ignore this for now. So I think eventually the court will take some more cases, but who knows when and, what kind of case that would be. That New York City case would have been a really easy one for them to decide. It was such a ridiculous law. But maybe you've got some pushback in terms of this carry issue with some members of the court.
Yeah, I honestly, the one of the big reasons we formed San Diego County Gun Owners and Riverside County Gun Owners and Orange and San Bernardino is we realized, for number one, we were tired of waiting. I mean, Heller versus DC came out in 08, and then in 2010, McDonald, and we're still here with all these horrible laws in California. We got tired of waiting for the courts, but we really came to the conclusion that that's one tool, in the toolbox, the court system. But unless we really start getting back to good old-fashioned activism and getting the right people elected and following, what this country was supposed to do, which was elect representatives, that we are engaged with. And we decided, a lot more of that has to happen. Do you think that, do you think that the courts are going to be able to swoop in and save us? Or do you think this is a long game and we're going to be lucky to see it in our lifetime? Or what are your thoughts on that?
Well, don't hold your breath waiting for the courts to save you. It's the same thing with, you better have your own guns because you're your first protector. Don't wait for the police to save you, especially in this day and age when, when you need the police in seconds, they'll be there in minutes was the rule yesterday. But today it's like, well, we're going to defund the police. So just now you're really on your own. And it's the same with the courts. Political action is might save the day a lot more frequently than judicial action. So, and that's why we have most states in this country, about 42 states have shall issue carry laws. It's because of mobilizing people politically. And so, no, you can't rely on the courts. I mean, if you have good judges, sometimes you can do something right, but you don't know where it's going to head. It's just like the court that invalidated the 10-round magazine limitation in California.
Yeah.
That's on appeal to the Ninth Circuit. Who knows what the Nutty Knights is going to do? So, yes, sir, political action. You're doing the right thing, and more power to you.
We've decided to stay and fight because a lot of people are packing up and leaving California, but we don't feel that way. We feel by, this radio show's 4 years old now.
Yep.
And we've been sort of running side by side with San Diego County Gun Owners. And I can honestly say we've done a lot for San Diego as far as concealed carry permits, bringing people's awareness to what's really going on. We're giving them, and we try to stay right down the middle. We try not to be political any way, shape, or form. We try to give facts. We bring in a lot of politicians that are like-minded as yourself and us here, because I think Mike hit it right on the head. If we don't elect these kind of people into this, into the politics that believe in the Second Amendment and the Constitution, then we're going the wrong way.
Yeah. Thank you, Steve. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you coming on the show. I'm truly a big fan of your work.
Well, how do people find your book? Because I have to get it since I'm the car guy and I do a lot of reading. I'd like to read this book. How would I go about finding it?
It's so easy to buy books now. I think everybody knows. You just have to know the name of the author and the name of the book. So it's Stephen Hallbrook, the founder of Second Amendment.
Okay.
They might want to look at my website, StephenHallbrook.com. I've done several other books on Second Amendment related topics, and so you can get it from Amazon or wherever booksellers exist.
All right, that sounds great. Well, I only get books from this Motor Books, which is all car related, so I don't think that book would be there.
And this one doesn't have a lot of pictures, Dave. So you might.
Sure? Oh man! And as long as the print's big, I don't care. I'm good to go, sir. It was an honor to have you on. You keep up the good fight, and I'm sure we'll be talking to you down the road.
Sounds good. You guys keep up the good fight, too.
You got it, buddy. All right, folks, you're listening to FM 96.1, AM 1170.
The Answer.
All right, folks, welcome back. You're listening to Gun Owners Radio on FM 96.1, AM 1170.
The Answer.
All right, folks. Hey, what's the best defense for self-defense in those horrible new red flag laws? Firearms legal protection. Firearms legal protection is a legal defense program for lawful gun owners with a 24/7 emergency hotline and plans designed specifically for the firearms owner. Talk to the good folks at Firearms Legal Protection today. That's Firearms Legal Protection at firearmslegal.com, or you can call them direct at 469-310-9100. That's firearmslegal.com. All right, this segment is brought to you by the Gun Range San Diego. I call it the Nordstrom's of gun ranges, just not the price. All about service. 7853 Balboa Avenue, Sunday through Thursday, 10 to 7, and 10 to 10 on Friday and Saturday. Go to thegunrangesandiego.com. You can find out all the things that are going on. And when you get down there, you might be lucky enough to run into their firearms expert, Jason. How you doing, bud?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
You must have taken a day off the other day. I was there, last Friday, and I think you were gone. I
figured it out. Oh, geez, I was on vacation.
Oh, you take a vacation? Yeah, the place.
I had one of those for a couple years. I needed that. That was good.
The place was rocking, and you weren't there, but that's okay.
Yeah, that's great to hear.
Yeah, I thought you'd appreciate that. Absolutely. But I did see you had a few firearms in the cabinet, so it doesn't look like your cupboards are bare, and the range was going like crazy.
Just banging. It is banging. We're actually getting guns, and we're getting handguns in with a little bit of regularity now. It seems every 2-3, every few days we get They get a small shipment of guns, a handful of pistols, and they sell really quick. Glocks, usually Glocks or Springfield XDs, got a lot of, still have a nice big selection of real high-quality Smith & Wesson revolvers. Things are starting to look good. They're starting to finally look a little better for the handguns.
We know it's good. There's, we were talking about that last week. There's the surge is continuing, and there's kind of a delay. We talked about ammo last week. Still getting challenging, and now the thing following the ammo I noticed the other day was the reloading stuff, because I was looking at primers, and I've got a fair supply, but I don't have as many as I thought I did. So I thought, let me look for primers. Everything's out of stock now, so now it's I think that follow up now, because first you had the gun shortage, or the handgun shortage, as manufacturers were trying to keep up with the demand, and then that was followed by an ammunition shortage, and now with the reloading stuff, like the people that make the primers, are selling primers to the manufacturers for ammo, and then they're also selling it to us reloaders, and now it looks like that's all backed up.
Right, that's kind of like the next logical thing to start to go scarce. We have noticed a lot of customers have been calling us lately asking, hey, do you sell primers like this other store? And we don't have the licensing for it, but I've kind of picked up on that. I used to hand load quite a bit, and I've definitely noticed, just for kicks, I've kind of looked around, hey, I wonder what, like something real simple like a Lee hand press or an RCBS, single stage presses, even the simple stuff, it's all gone. It's all gone. I've got there are places like what's it called, Redline Ballistics. I used to buy a lot of bullets from that guy Alonzo Mejia on Mission Gorge, and that guy's so slammed. I don't know I don't think he knows what to do with himself anymore. But yeah, the hand loading business has just been absolutely nuts.
Yeah,
because that is the next thing to go.
Yeah, and even bullets. Because I bought bullets a couple of weeks ago. And even that, online from Extreme Bullets, normally I order those things, they ship the next day, and I have them a couple of days after that. And it took like 2 weeks just to even get it processed and get things to ship.
Oh, wow.
And everything is backed up. So, I hope people...
It's crazy.
Well, I hope people learn from this, too, because, we always... people that have been around a long time, like people like yourself that have been shooting for years and years and years... always say, stay stocked up. Make sure you have, people say, 6 months to a year's worth of ammo. You know what you regularly shoot. You know what you shoot in a month. So you should have, 6 months to a year's worth of that. And, I was pretty close. So, I'm pretty happy. I was prepared. But, a lot of people were scrambling. So hopefully people learn from this, because this kind of stuff happens from time to time, and
right. Oh, yeah.
And if it's, really serious, you don't really want to be caught without anything, because like we're saying earlier, the gun's not useful if there's no ammo for it.
Right. You can't run the car without gas. Yeah, that's you're 100% right. A lot of people, the people who have been in the business for, I shouldn't say the business, the people who have been into shooting for a while. If anybody remembers after 2012, the really unfortunate Sandy Hook incident, AR-15s disappeared. They just absolutely disappeared. Ammunition, 5.56, and for some reason 22 in particular also disappeared. That was the first time I'd ever seen ammo just completely disappear from shops, and I was blown away. And because I've had that experience, and from that point on, I kind of figured, I need to have like 1,000 at least at all times for every gun I got, and I'm glad I do, because this happened, and now suddenly you don't seem like a hoarder, what I mean? Some of these people have like 17,000 rounds, and suddenly they don't look so crazy.
Well, no, it's funny.
It's actually a good thing. It's a good thing.
Yeah, because people that aren't involved in this, that don't know, like when there's a shooting or something that happens, and you'll see the news cover it, and they'll go arrest the guy, and they'll say he had a stockpile of 500 rounds of ammunition. And it's like
500 rounds.
I mean, that's
a trip to the desert, That's,
and that's
to the desert.
5,000 is probably minimal, and it's just people don't have perspective on that kind of stuff. But
no, they really don't. The thing that was kind of, I don't want to say bothered me, that kind of blew me away, and I almost, a little twisted sense of humor that I got. It's almost kind of funny how so many people are against firearms ownership. They know nothing about it. They know nothing about it, but they want to slam it. And then suddenly this happens. I have never, ever, I'm not going to knock somebody for the views. I come from a very progressive family. I'm not going to knock anybody for the views, but you got to know what you're talking about if you're going to talk about it. So many people who are very anti-gun suddenly are saying, maybe it's not such a bad idea to have one. Maybe it's better to have it and not need it than the other way around.
Well, it's funny. Like a family friend of ours we had this discussion, or I had this discussion with her, and she was telling me, no, I feel very strongly about it, because she's a big anti-gun person. I feel very strongly about it. But I said, well, what do you know about it? And she said, I don't know anything about it, but I feel very strongly.
Yeah, well,
that's
and it's like, you can say that with a straight face. I will never talk about something that I know nothing about. I will be honest and say, hey, I don't know anything about brain surgery. Okay, I don't know. I'm not going to talk about it because I know nothing about it. I cannot have an opinion on something if I don't know anything about it.
Well, and that was tough. Yeah, for me as an engineer too, because I'm saying, what do you feel very strongly about this, but you don't know anything about it, and you're telling me you don't know anything about it. But to her credit though too, she was willing to come to. We got her to go to a Women on Target. She got to shoot. She really enjoyed it. I don't know if it changed her mind or strong feelings any, but she was willing to come and learn some stuff, and she did really enjoy it. So.
Well, that's all we want. I've seen, I don't know, I can't even count how many. I'm sure you have too. I don't know how many people, I've maybe like a friend of a friend, or someone, they want to come and they want to try it for the first time. And usually for me, it's like a friend and a new girlfriend or something, and or one of my sisters and one of the new boyfriends. I got a lot of sisters, and usually they have, of course, they don't know what they're doing. They feel pretty strongly anti-gun, but then they shoot, and it's like, okay, well, I'm starting to understand. I'm starting to see this as more of a tool. It's kind of like fire. Fire can be good, it can be bad. It all depends on how it's being used. You can only stop. The only thing that can stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. That still rings true.
Well, yeah, and you were saying earlier too. Well, and you probably saw this in the shop. A lot of these, people buying guns nowadays are first-time gun buyers. And we've been hearing this from a lot of the different shops that people are shocked when they find out there's a 10-day waiting period, and they look at the process. And these are the people that voted for these laws. That's what's frustrating.
Yeah, that's another thing. It's funny. Every once in a while, someone from SDSU or UC, usually SDSU, will come, and they'll ask to speak, to the manager. It's me or Brian, the range guy. And usually they want to make like a collage. They always want to get bullet casings. They always want to get round casings. And usually they make like a collage or some kind of anti-gun thing. And it's like, yeah, okay, but do you know? Do you know? I have a lot of people. A lot of those people, usually students, have been coming in lately, and you kind of give them another opinion, and sometimes it changes their mind.
See, that's your job. It's not selling guns. It's educating the masses. So keep up the good work, buddy.
Thank you, guys.
All right.
Take it easy.
Don't work too hard. That's Gun Range San Diego, folks. Make sure you check out their website. Go down, shoot some rounds, and have some fun. Right here on FM 96.1 AM 1170.
The Answer.
This program is sponsored by Dave Stahl.